Because political leaders have very wisely been very circumspect in speaking on the constitutional judgment against our former president, Mr. Zuma, knowing, of course, that this has the potential to divide our country. But what is happening in Nkandla right now has the potential to do much greater harm. And that is why I've called this press conference. As someone who has served my country for more than 60 years, I dare not keep silent. I love my country too much to see the future destroyed. I therefore speak today, not as a politician, or even as traditional prime minister of the Zulu monarch and nation, but as one of the few remaining elders in our country. Let me state up front that I sympathize with Mr. Zuma's family in this difficult time. Any lawyer would have known the consequences awaiting the former president if he refused to comply with the Constitutional Court's order to appear at the State Captures Commission. Mr. Zuma's lawyers let him down, and he's now facing the consequences. I'm not judging his case, but I sympathize with his plight. For he's still an elder, like myself, facing a... But let me make it clear that this is not the first time that a leader of his status is arrested in our country, that a leader of his status has faced imprisonment in our country. Other leaders have faced imprisonment for decades and worse. History provides us with many examples, but history also shows us how those leaders acted in the face of trial, even unjust trial, and how their people acted in response. What is happening in Nkandla right now runs contrary to our dignity as a people. We're making ourselves a spectacle in the eyes of the world. When the Zulu kingdom was vanquished by the British on the 4th of July, 1879, my maternal great-grandfather, whose picture I've brought for you behind me, King Nkandla, was arrested and exiled. The Zulu nation was at the height of its power at that time. It had taken the full might of the British Majesty's army to defeat the Zulu nation, an army that was greater than that which the British used to conquer the whole of India. Yet when King Nkandla was arrested and sent into exile, neither the king's regiments nor his people threatened the physical uprising, for it would have been hopeless, and it would have also have ended in utter destruction. Then King Nkandla's son, my maternal great-grandfather, walked in the same steps as his father. King Dinuzulu was found guilty of high treason in 1889 and was exiled by the British to the island of St. Helena. The Zulu regiments were mighty at the time, but the king submitted himself willingly to arrest, like his father. There was no uprising. On my father's side, my paternal grandfather, Nkandla Buthelezi, was accused of trumped-up charges of murder and sentenced to be hanged, despite the fact that there was no corpus delicti. The alleged body was never found. And because of the absence of a body, the then Minister of Justice at that time, which is J.B.M. Herzog, recommended a reprieve. But the Governor General, Lord Gladstone, followed the recommendation of the Judge President in sentencing my grandfather to hang. And Nkandla was executed, actually, on the 22nd of February, 1911. The real reason behind this was that my grandfather had participated at the Isandwana, where the British were routed, and he had survived. He had to pay for those sins, which was unjust. But still, there was no uprising. My grandfather, Nkandla's father, Jacob Buthelezi, had served as transitional prime minister to the king and the Zulu nation. But the Zulu nation did not start an uprising in sympathy. My great-grandfather, Mnyamana, had served as commander-in-chief of all the mighty Zulu regiments. Also, Hoshi Mampuru, the second, of the Bapedi nation, one of South Africa's heroes in the wars of resistance, was also charged with rebellion and murder and was brutally hanged in Pretoria, despite President Kruger's assurances that sentence would not be carried out until he had discussed the matter with the British Colonial Secretary, Lord Derby. There was more unity then among our people than there is today. Yet still they did not indulge in an exercise of futility. There was no uprising. Neither did our people revolt, despite being more powerful and united than we are at present. When the king was charged with treason in the last armed struggle against colonialism, I'm speaking of my grandfather, King Dinizulu, which was ignited by the Bambata Rebellion in 1905, there was no uprising. And in 1964, during our own lifetime, when we were deprived of the cream of our liberation leaders, Mr. Mandela, Govan Beki, Sisulu, and other stalwarts of the Rivonia trial, we did not contemplate any physical revolt. We loved them too. When all of this history, with all of it, I'm very troubled by what is happening at Nkandla. It is simply wrong. Our people there are challenging the state, and in so doing, they are challenging all of us who are guided by the rule of law. But there's a second sin being committed at Nkandla. For those who are gathering are doing so at a time when our country faces the worst variant of the coronavirus. We know that the protocols of social distancing and wearing face masks are more important measures to secure our survival than even the jabs that people are receiving now. Yet when one watches the people congregating at Nkandla, there is barely a face mask in sight. They are jeopardizing their lives and the lives of every one of us in whose midst they are living. That is the greatest irresponsibility of all. I appeal, therefore, in this time of great reflection, that we consider what is going on at Nkandla as treasonous. It's treasonous. With all due respect people may have for Mrs. Zuma's plight, challenging the state and risking lives is unacceptable. As one of the few remaining leaders of my generation who fought for freedom, I fear that God will judge me harshly if I keep silent, as people destroy this country's future. They are creating a future of poverty and death for the youth of South Africa, and I dare not keep silent.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is the statement. I think you know the drift. It will be getting your name and the organization your media house will come from. Please, one question at a time, loud, slow, and clear. And then the filter, we're going to respond to your questions as you have. The lady here in front.
Okay, thank you so much, Shenge. It's Yanda Nobo from Newsroom Africa. Shenge, you are speaking here as an elder, and you do have a relationship somewhat with former President Jacob Zuma. How would you advise him to deal with his supporters who congregated outside Nkandla? Because yesterday, when he was asked that question, he basically said that the reaction of his supporters should show us that, we mustn't provoke, but he didn't quite condemn their actions. But also, Shenge, you are decrying the irresponsible behavior outside the Nkandla homestead, but the former president himself was seen with Amabutho and the supporters not wearing a mask. So what are your comments on that? And are you concerned at all that what is happening outside in Nkandla could also be for trading along ethnic nationalism and ethnic lines and blurring that with the politics?
Just last part.
And whether or not this, what is happening outside in Nkandla could also be trading along ethnic nationalism and blurring, what is actually happening politically.
Well, first of all, I've said that what is happening in Nkandla just now is treasonous. So that applies to everyone, actually, because even the journalists put that question, and of course, our former president did not respond to it, as far as I remember. So watching the screen. Now, feel that it was very irresponsible, for instance, for that demonstration in which the president, or our president, Mr. Zuma, participated, with some people claiming that they were representing the king's regiments, because this was done without the king's knowledge, this was done without my knowledge, without the knowledge of the royal family. And actually, the man was actually wearing the headgear, which we only wear when the king celebrates the first fruits. So everything that was happening there was wrong. And in fact, it was very wrong to give the image as if the Zulu nation and the royal family and the king's regiments were part and parcel of what is going on in Nkandla. I don't know if I've answered all your questions, because you put too many questions.
Yes, I was going to.
Just to clarify, if at all, Shenge, if you're not concerned that because of what you've just said, that it's irresponsible to have people claiming to be representing Amabutho, that what is happening outside in Nkandla has been mainly political, but are you concerned that it possibly has the potential to run along ethnic nationalism and ethnic lines? You would have heard the former president saying, well, I'm a Zulu boy.
Well, I don't think that they have a right to ethnicize, if I may use that word, what they're doing there. In fact, it's the height of irresponsibility to do so. And it's an insult, in fact, to the Zulu nation.
Thank you, Ubongan Gina from Gakas FM. You do enjoy a cordial relationship with President Zuma. I just want to know whether you tried to meet him just to cordially talk and advise him on this matter. And also, what then do you think or suggest that he should do regarding this matter?
No, I think that it would be very presumptuous of me to advise, to go to the former president to advise him. The most African National Congress have been going there, including the premier and leaders of the ANC in the province to advise him. And so far, judging by his utterances, after those meetings, it seems that it was like pouring water on a duck's back, because it seems that he's very intransigent about the fact that he will not go to prison.
Your Worship, Your Royal Highness, already been covered.
Can you speak louder, please?
Okay, sorry. I'm Sisha from Independent Media. I've already been covered by Mr. Kina because every time you speak about Zuma, there's always that picture of you and Zuma going into the home of the late Michelle Adele, where Zuma is holding your hand. So I wanted to know whether we have spoken to Mr. Zuma about this personally, but now I've already been covered.
Pardon me. Can you repeat the question? You must excuse me because my hearing is impaired.
Okay, let us do it like this way. I've already been covered by Mr. Kina.
I see.
Yeah.
Any question? Yes. I'm Nkandla from Power FM. In your opinion, who is to blame for the presence of Mangosuthu at the Zuma homestead? In your opinion, who is to blame for the presence of Mangosuthu at the Zuma homestead? The second question, in your capacity as Prime Minister to the Zulu monarch, have you had a conversation with Mangosuthu with regards to their visit at the Zuma homestead? And thirdly, what do you think the former president should have done to disperse or prevent the crowds or the large gathering outside his home?
Well, I must say, actually, in terms of the press conference, I did not go to the palace because already His Majesty the King had indicated in a message to me that the people who led those people who went up needed to become before him and before all of us today. That will probably happen tomorrow. So I cannot prejudge that, but the matter is being attended to very swiftly by the king himself. Now, I cannot now say what Mr. Zuma should have done, because Mr. Zuma is an adult like myself. I cannot be judgmental and now say that what he should have done, because he participated. So I think it would be wrong for me to be judgmental about that, because this is a man who has been the head of state, He has been MEC in our province. He has been the leader of our largest movement. I'm trying to say to you, he is well able to think for himself without any gratuitous advice from me.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
We still always ask for issues.
Okay. Is not yet. So we were told SABC was supposed to be there, not here. So, sorry? Oh, yeah, they would like to have decisions.
Yes. Manenekazi media ngiyabonga ukuza kwenu uma ngicela ba ngizokhuluma xoxa nani ngodaba lokho kwenzekayo eNkandla. Futhi ngiyazi ukuthi lolu daba lo wayengumengameli wethu udaba olucayi. Ngabe umuntu ubuka ngaluphi uthi umuntu ubuka ngaluphi uhlobo. Xa uthinta kawuhlukene nomuntu obhukuda kwesinengwele. Niyazi ukuthi abaholi bey'nhlangano zombusazwe bonke sebephawulile ngalo udaba engibona lizokuhlukanisa isizwe sakithi phakathi. Ngenxa yalesi sizathu ngithe kangiphawule nami siqu, hhayi ngohlangothi lwami kwezombusazwe noma njengonduna kolwesile noZulu. Ngithe ngibona nginganecala kubantu noNkulunkulu uqobo. Uma ngabona isizwe sakithi singase singene obhukwini, uma singaqapheli bese ngikuhlaba inhlali, kanti sengomunye umthonselana esaseleyo kontanga yethu lapha emhlabeni. Ngifisa ukuba zisuka nje phansi kuba thini. Ngiphumela obala ukuthi ngimzwela kakhulu umsholozi ngokuba abhekane nengwadla engaka esengaka ngudala. sekusele inyangana ezimbalwa ahlanganisa amashume ayisishiyagalombili sesisebuxhegwini sobabili noma yena sengumfana kuyimi kodwa nxa kubalwa iminyaka. Ngisho futhi ukuthi ngiwuzwela kakhulu umndeni umhlonishwa umsholozi omkakhe nengane nabazukulu bakhe nenkosi yaKwaZuma nomndeni waKwaZuma. Nanjengoba ayeke wamongameli wethu futhi waba neqhaza empini yethu yenkululeko. Ngakho kangimsoli yena siqu kakhulu kodwa ngisola abameli bakhe abamdukisayo. Lokho ke engifuna ukugcila kukho xa ngibona izwe lethu lingase lishe nokusha ngakho konke lokho kwenzeka eNkandla. Ukuthi lokho kumveleleyo umhlonishwa umnumzane uZuma akuboli ovelele kanjengaye nje abhekane nenkinga yokuboshwa etilongweni kufanele noma ungafanele. Lokhu ngikubhekise ngqo kubantu bakithi abezwa ubuhlungu nasebenza lamaqongo enzekayo kwadakwa nidunuse emzini kaMsholozi. Lamaqongo enzekayo ayingozi esizweni sakithi sonke kulimaza isithunzi sethu njengabantu besizwe sikaZulu nanjengabantu abampisholo. Izolo leli kabule mhla ka4 July okusuku lapha uZulu namabutho kakhokho wami ingonyama ucetshwa kaMpande ashila khona impi yamangisi ococweni khona lapho ndini. Nasi isithombe sakhe ngemva kwami. Esadwetshwa ukusho kaQueen Victoria wathumela umdwebi uSono ukuthi asenze ngikhathi ukhokho wami eSingilandi. Kuqondene ngesimanga lengxoxo yami nenyathelo namhlanje ngoba kuyizolo. Isilo ucetshwa waboshwa wadingiselwe eKapa wayisiboshwa kwiCastle ehamba nendunkulu ogogo. Emva kwalokho waboshelwa eplazini Old Mullen kuleyo mpi yamangisi noZulu wayesemandleni amakhulu kuyimpi yamaqhawe. Amangisi ayisebenzisa impi engaphezulu kwaleyo ayisebenzisa ukuba anqobe isizwe saseNdiya kanye nezizwe zaseNdiya ukuba anqobe uZulu lapha oNdiya. Phezu kwaZulu isizwe esasinamandla angako ngazange siqubuke sithi asilwe nalabo abazobopha inkosi isilo ucetshwayo. Kudala kangako imiqondo yesiZulu yayisivuthiwe ngokweneleyo ukwazi ukuthi kwakungaba imula bokuqala nokugcina ukuqubuka bathi ngeke inkosi yethu ngeke iboshwe iyoboshwa sifile sonke. Babazi ukuthi ngeke bafake isizwe sikaZulu emlilweni ababengeke bakwazi ukucima ngoba ukho umbethe okwaphikisana nelanga. Ngokwenza njalo ubaba omkhulu isilo ubaba omkhulu inkosi yaseSuthu isilo dinzulu waboshwa naye noyise ababili umntwana uNdabuko waminya amanzi nomntwana uShingana wasonkweni. Inkosi dinzulu yadingiselwa esiqhingini esikude le yayineseRobben Island yadingiselwa eSt Helena. Ngaleso sikhathi amafela nkosi akethi ayilwela inkosi nobukhosi esizweni sikaZulu awazange asuse nomncane umsindo. uZulu esenguzulu ngaleso sikhathi esaqinile esenamandla. Ngemva kwalokho yabuyisa inkosi ngo-1897 kwathi ngo-1905 inkosi uDinzulu sibuyile oSuthu kwafika inkosi yakwaZondo endaweni yaseNkunguzovana yaletha umkayo esigodlweni oSuthu ushiyekiwe igama lakhe uMazuma kanye nendodakazi yayo ukholekile. uMazuma emva kwesikhathi kathi nange sigijima eya khona lapha emantshini khona lapha emahlabathini emashona asiyakusho ukuthi ade athozwe ethukuzwe emzini wesilo efihle emzini wesilo oSuthu isilo uDinzulu waphinde waboshwa waqulisa icala eMkunguzovana lamlahla lokuvukela umbuso high treason waboshwa wafakwa ejele eNewcastle. Nxa kwenzeka konke lokho akukho luthuthuva olwenziwa isizwe saKwaZulu. Inkosi yabo beyithanda sebeke bayifela nasempini kaMandlakazi noSuthu kwaNdunu. ohlanganisweni kababa ongizalayo babamkhulu ozala ubaba umkhandumi kamnyamana kwathi ngafa inkosana kamnyamana uTshanibezwe kwamele uba athathe isikhundla sokuphatha isizwe sokuButhelezi wasuka laba babefuna ukuba beyiba babekwayo esikhundeni sikaTshanibezwe babophela babamkhulu umkhandumi amanqine enyathi bathi ubulela umuntu ayesemzini wakhe emavakeni engoje waboshwa ubaba omkhulu njengoba ayizalwa umnyamana wayekade ngiduna kube silolo sesondini cetshwayo nomdidiyelo wamabutho kunguye owayiphakile umdidiyelo wamabutho hayi lempekethe ukhuluma ngayo manje ngenkathi amangisi ehlasela uZulu kodwa ngenkathi indodana yakhe umkhandumi bayiboshwa akuzange kuvumbeke noyedwa esizweni sikaZulu esasele siphethe umnyamane sipaka umnyamane nasezweni sakwaButhelezi ukususa uthuthuva ngoba bethi bazokulwa ngoba bosho babamkhulu angazi nomkhophi esiZulu wathathile kwathi noma ungqongqoshe wezokulungisa ngalesikhathi uJBM Hudson emva komunye kwecala wacela ulisiba likhulu uLord Gladstone ePitoli ngoba lelizwe lasaphethe ngamangisi uLord Gladstone kodwa wenqaba ukwela ngqongqoshe zobulungisa uHerzog ukuthi nempela wamunywa emgungundlovu olufana nalolu esilibona kwenziwa uJacob Zuma Nkandla.
Right, unfortunately, the line is not the best there, but at least we got the gist of what Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. Well, that was the Zulu Kingdom traditional Prime Minister and elder statesman Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, just sharing his thoughts on the situation unfolding in Nkandla, saying as much as he sympathizes with the Zuma's plight, well, Zuma is not the first high-profile individual to be arrested in South Africa. Well, that's it leads to our next question. What do you make of what transpired in Nkandla? We've got some social media responses.